All right. So my name is Frederick Manawa. I am a Bitcoin reporter with CoinDesk, and sometimes I cover Ordinals, which I believe to be an interesting topic. And that's why I'm bringing you this topic today. It is breaking Bitcoin or building a community, the new NFT gold rush. So we've got four panelists with me today. We've got Dr. Shente Su from Alex Go. We've got Elizabeth Olson from Xverse, Charlie Spears from Ordinal Hub, and Brian Laughlin from Ordinals Bot. So I won't give the background for each of these panelists, but I'll ask them to do that. So why don't we go around and introduce ourselves to the audience, starting with you, Dr. Shente Su. Why don't you take it
Sure.
over?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Good to see you here. Um, just a disclaimer. I don't know why I'm on this session because I'm the CEO and co-founder of Alex, and Alex stands for Automated Liquidity Exchange. At the moment, we are biggest Bitcoin DeFi, and have the fastest DEX for Bitcoin L1 tokens. Having said that, I'm very honored to be here, and I hope that I can contribute. Thank you.
All right, and I'm sure we'll have some good questions for you, and you'll see why you're here. So thank you for that, Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Olson. I'm head of growth at Xverse, the leading wallet for Bitcoin Web3 with first-class support for Ordinals. We are available on iOS, Android, and Chrome browser extensions. So if you don't have Xverse, definitely download it, check it out. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth. Charlie, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Hey everybody, I'm Charlie Spears. I work for Luxor on behalf of Ordinal Hub. Ordinal Hub's a Ordinal's aggregator, explorer, data provider, kind of ecosystem tracker. And also I'm in the business of Bitcoin mining and block production. So Ordinals very much fascinate me. And as a general Bitcoin enthusiast, Ordinals are one of the most interesting things I've seen happen in Bitcoin in years.
All right, thank you, Charlie. And finally, Brian.
Hey everybody, my name is Brian. I'm the co-founder of Ordinals Bot. We are an automated inscription service, so we make it really easy for you to inscribe Ordinals. You just drag and drop the files, we inscribe it and send it to you. We also help you with launching collections on Ordinals, and we have a great API as well. So yeah, really excited to talk today on the panel.
All right, so thanks everyone. And what I'll do is I'll start this session maybe by just setting things up. Before I ask the questions, I'm just going to describe, I guess, a story that I wrote circa January 20th, 2023. So you've got a Bitcoin developer, Casey Rotamore. He tweets the following message: inscriptions are finally ready for Bitcoin mainnet. Inscriptions are like NFTs, but are true digital artifacts, decentralized, immutable, always on chain, and native to Bitcoin. And then a few days later, Dan Held, who's like a Bitcoin educator, he tweets ordinals equals NFTs on Bitcoin. This is good for Bitcoin, right? So all good news, but not everyone was happy about this new protocol. And one of those people was longtime Bitcoin core developer Luke Dasher, and he tweeted that. Actually, I think he sent me a DM that day because I was just picking his brain, and he said Ordinals is an attack on Bitcoin. So, different perspectives from two respectable groups. So my question to each of you is the Ordinals protocol an attack on Bitcoin, and has it divided the community? So, Dr. Shente Su, we'll start with you.
Right. So attack is something negative, destructive. So if we interpret attack in a very orthodox way, and I don't believe that's attack, right? Attack implies that something that diminishes or weakens Bitcoin But I think we are all here because we have witnessed that the Ordinal protocol actually has done just the opposite. So to date, there are over $55 million in inscription fee that have been sent to the Bitcoin miners towards security in the Bitcoin blockchain. And the engagement, the excitement, and the attention that Ordinals have created on Bitcoin and also the whole crypto sector has massively reinvigorated the ecosystem, drawing developers, activities, and make Bitcoin, I would say make Bitcoin fun again. But from the fun, from the imagination that Ordinal have created inside to the whole ecosystem, it means that better builders are coming, all the infrastructure innovations are coming. So I am on the DeFi space. Money is very, very boring. But with this, you call it spring, crypto spring, and really the only exciting story at the moment within our sector, I would say that this is not an attack. The opposite. This is really, fresh energy, open people's eyes about the new use case of Bitcoin. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm just going to go down here just based on what I'm seeing on my screen. So I'll just go down this way. And by the way, Charlie, just take a note of that $55 million figure, because I'm going to ask you about that, because you're a mining guru. Elizabeth, what are your thoughts on Ordinals being an attack on Bitcoin?
So just to add to what Dr. Chinti Su was saying, I would say that those who feel that it's an attack, I think those people are very much in the minority at this point. I think initially there definitely was a lot of pushback, but what we're seeing now with Ordinals is this bridge being built between this maximalist group and those who would say that they're moderates, those who want to make Bitcoin productive. We're seeing already some of the biggest brands, Bitcoin brands like Bitcoin Magazine. They've launched their own Ordinals collection. They've kind of segued into this moderate group. We've seen some of the largest OGs, the most well-known OGs like Michael Saylor, and even Vitalik was recently on an Ordinals space and really lending support. So I think at this point, we're looking for common ground and ways to bridge, not only within the community, but beyond. And I think everybody can agree that in order to maintain Bitcoin's stability and longevity, we need to turn it into a productive asset. We need to be able to incentivize the miners to maintain that. And so that's essentially a win-win for everyone. Seeing more utility on Bitcoin is bringing more value. And now we have this new use case. Not only do we have a place to store wealth, but now we have a place to store data. So I think that's been something that's been really exciting to see, and hopefully that more and more we're going to see people aligned around that vision.
Cool, thank you, Brian. Any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Bitcoin is it's a really strong community. It's got a lot of passionate users since the beginning. A lot of really, really smart developers have been involved in the space since day one, and grew the network to where it is. A lot of them moved out of Bitcoin to other chains, and then they're now coming back. I think that when people see big changes happening on Bitcoin and they see the fee market going up and everyone's freaking out over that, there is a fear factor in there. Is this the correct use case for Bitcoin? If you're so passionate about it, you might have these reactions. But I think that it's a net positive for Bitcoin overall. We've seen a huge influx of amazing creators come back to the space, amazing developers come back to the space, really happy to actually come back from other chains back to build on Bitcoin. They say they're coming back home to build on Bitcoin. And I think that's obviously a net positive. And then, I think all of us can agree we're not doing this as efficiently as it could be done either. We're just basically going for this and really putting it out there and throwing stuff to the wall and seeing what sticks. there's many protocols being built right now that are not as efficient as it could be, right? There's no need why this data, for example, has to be human readable, right? It could be just bytes and it doesn't need to be human readable. So there are more ways of doing it. But instead of us just like talking over and over again and like arguing to each other back and forth what should be the way to do it, what we've found over the last few months is people are just doing it. And that's brought a lot of innovation to the space and it's drove things forward massively. Where I think in the last few years, there's just been a lot of arguments and talking in Bitcoin and not so much action. So that's where I can see it being a positive. And like Elizabeth said, we are starting to see a lot of people turn around from that initial kind of jerk reaction in January and February. A lot of people are starting to turn around and see the benefits of it.
Thank you, Brian. Charlie.
Yeah. Ordinals is not an attack on Bitcoin. It is rather Casey's love letter to Bitcoin. Casey is, like me, a very hardcore, very long time Bitcoiner, Bitcoin core contributor, actually. As Andrew Polstra of Blockstream wrote in the Bitcoin mailing list, there's really no way to fight this against this or stop it without compromising some of Bitcoin's core values and components. I think what this really does is it brings a whole new cohort in. It kicks off a Pandora's box of Bitcoin development. Some things incredible, some things terrible, but ultimately a good, more dynamic, and more rapid price discovery environment for Bitcoin's pristine block space.
Thank you. Yeah, that's I remember reading that from Andrew. So looks like you are really deeply embedded in this in the community. So interesting factoid there. All right. So a lot of, sometimes people ask when these kinds of things happen, people ask, what would Satoshi do? And in this case, we actually do have precedent, right? In 2010, there were a few old school Bitcoiners who wanted to set up a domain name service on top of Bitcoin that they called BitDNS. And Satoshi basically said, no, if you want to set up anything that is not really related to Bitcoin payments, and I'm kind of, paraphrasing, it's not exactly what he said. He said they should start their own chain, something to that effect. And that's what they did. They started Namecoin. All right. So some people have kind of argued that, well, if you want to do NFTs on Bitcoin, why don't you just start a new chain for NFTs? What are your thoughts about forking Bitcoin to have another chain that is NFT focused, just like another chain that's big block focused, like Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV?
I can take it. I mean, I think that Bitcoin needs use cases, man. We need to have a free market built around Bitcoin, more other than payments. You have to have really good use cases on there. Now, I'm an advocate of really pushing everything we can on L1 to the limit, and seeing what we can do with, partially saying Bitcoin transaction technology. We've seen marketplaces, and Alex are really integrating that in a great way. So we're seeing all these use cases on L1, but we're really going to push it to the limit there. And when you need maybe some more really complex logic that just can't be handled on L1, and you need some smart contract involved there, I would be dead against doing a fork. I would be more inclined to do an L2 built on top of Bitcoin, so that we're still using Bitcoin as that base layer of security, but we're still getting the use case of a layer 2. It doesn't need to be a full-fledged layer 2. It could even be a more larger scale protocol built on top, like with little off-chain elements, but a lot of the main components are kind of stored finally on Bitcoin as a base layer. I think that's what we're going to see, actually. I think that we're all familiar with Stacks and what they've been doing over the last few years, and then Bitcoin Ordinals seems to come at the perfect time, I think, and it's pushed Bitcoin in the right direction. But I think we're going to see potentially eventually a use case come where we have to get to an L2, and then it's either got to be Stacks or someone else has got to fill that void, and then we might end up seeing maybe an explosion of protocols and L2s kind of being built on it to really fill that gap and keep the blocks ticking, so to say, because when the mining runs out, there has to be use cases built, and we need as many as we can.
Cool.
I'd also like to add that, if we're talking about unprecedented Satoshi situation here, they themselves put arbitrary non-economic data in the very first block. So that was already the case then and there. That we're seeing data on Bitcoin as a use case that he himself endorsed. So, and then when it comes to ordinals, this is something that's tracking Satoshis and ordinals theories external to Bitcoin's blockchain consensus mechanism. So this is actually functioning as an overlay. So it really doesn't require any changes to Bitcoin itself. It was enabled through a few different upgrades, SegWit and Taproot, but that was actually very much, praised by the maxis at the time, and just, was just enough to move the needle to enable ordinals. And because Bitcoin is permissionless and it's not making any changes to Bitcoin itself, it's really, there's nothing to fork.
Cool. All right. So I'm looking at the time here. So I'm just going to move on to the next question. Charlie and Dr. Shintasu, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to this next question, which is kind of similar to the one that I just asked. And that is, what are the pros and cons of ordinals? We've had ordinals now for 6 months. What is the case for and what is the case against ordinals? Charlie, do you want to go?
I think the case for ordinals is that it brings incredible expression to Bitcoin, works within Bitcoin's existing consensus rules. This is a virtue and a core proponent that Bitcoiners through the years have said, we want to do as little changes to the base layer of Bitcoin, perhaps let it ossify, but this allows expression and interpretation on top of that. It's effectively a DID system native to Bitcoin. As Casey says, he, kind of defined ordinal theory as we understand it, but it doesn't mean that people couldn't have been using ordinal theory to track Satoshis for the past 14 years. So this is both a new and an old concept. I think there is a good criticism of it insofar as it might challenge Bitcoin's fungibility. I think that's a semantics discussion. And I fall pretty hardly on the side that it doesn't challenge Bitcoin's fungibility. And then as far as does it clog up the network? I think, again, that's a semantics issue. This is one man's trash is another man's very important JPEG. So I think this is going to really reveal and accelerate, as I said before, the price discovery for block space.
Thanks, Charlie.
So I'm a quant, so I'm going. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump on I'm looking at the time here. I'm going to jump into a question that's very specific to you, Shanta, and that is about the community that you've built with Alex, right? Because part of this discussion is about building community. So I was very interested in kind of learning how you've got the largest, I believe, community on Stacks. How did you build that?
Right. So Alex is only 1.5 years old, and just some matrices here. And thank you, Frederick, for this question. We have already on Twitter close to 100K followers. And on Discord, 2 years ago, it was just Rachel, my co-founder, myself. We were talking to each other on Discord. And now I believe we have about 55,000 very enthusiastic users keep on asking us various questions. I would say that we didn't build it is truly the case. Is organic growth. We came with a very clear mind that we want to create value and we want to clearly communicate why we are doing this. So I think that the communities that create value for the users will grow and those that don't will shrink. So value can take several forms, from your protocol having a very clear use case or utility. In the case of Alex, is that you want to swap any tokens, you come to our DEX. So we have the largest AMM and order book DEX on Bitcoin. But also, to create a very enthusiastic group of like-minded people, such as the NFT projects that here do. And then to take to the next level, I think lots of projects only talk about what they do and then or the features they have, but instead of how it benefits to the users or why what they are building is important. So I think that's the principle that we try to stick to. And ultimately, Alex belongs to Alex users. That's why we are also excited about Web3 economy. it's really, I think we want to be very clear in communicating that it is the user own Alex. And that's what we are trying for. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, okay, we've got a few seconds left here. So rapid fire, Elizabeth and Brian, just, in terms of community also, you've got a focus on user experience with your products being, a wallet and a web interface. Can you also tell us the lessons that you've learned about building products for people who are not familiar with Bitcoin, but who are interested in Bitcoin? So real quick, before time runs out, maybe just give us a few gold nuggets there.
A few quick points. I would say in general, we were always first and foremost striving to have a really friendly user experience, something that you would find on other chains. I think a lot of other chains were much more advanced in this way because it's easier to build there. And so we wanted to bring that experience, what you'd find on like a MetaMask or Phantom Wallet. We wanted to bring that to Bitcoin. So that's essentially what we're offering here. And it's been challenging because of the underlying tech, but ultimately that's what we're hoping to achieve. And I would say also another challenge is a wallet just by nature, we're the first touch point into the ecosystem. So we've had to, just purely educating people has really fallen onto our team's responsibility. So we've had to definitely expand our support team and just educate people around, even if people are coming from other chains, Bitcoin is different. So just really getting them to understand, what is the Bitcoin mempool and how do APIs work and all these different things. So it's been an exciting journey. It's been a really lucrative time, I would say, for builders, and we're just excited to see the adoption.
Brian, any final words?
Yeah, I can just agree with everything Elizabeth said there. It's a different blockchain to anything else that people are used to. It's very different from Ethereum. It's very different from Solana, and it's all about education. If you're building anything in this space and you've got to build a tool, try and be aware that you need to educate your users as much as you can and guide them down the line of what is the mempool and things like that. So it's been a challenge for us, but like Elizabeth said as well, it's really exciting to build in this space, and the more UX people we can get in this space, the better, because it's a beautiful blockchain, and we want to make it easier for people to interact with.
Charlie, you've got the last word, my man.
I'm just so glad. This is the freshest Bitcoin's ever felt, and I've been in it a long time. So yeah, glad to be here.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening in, and that's the end of our talk.